a viewer to the channel left a comment saying, first of all, I love your channel and your videos. Thank you for that. I have a question. What is your opinion about doing Via Ferrata alone? I assume you are doing them mostly alone. When was the moment when you decided that you felt confident enough to do them on your own? I guess there is always a risk of getting yourself into a situation where you might need some help. I replied to that comment. Then the reply was, JetSetYourself, thank you so much for such a great and detailed response. In my opinion, a video will be a good idea, because what I was doing in my reply at the end, I was suggesting that maybe I should create a video, which is today's video, and explain it better. So this is what I would love to speak today about. I'm here at the start of approach to this Via Ferrata. Going on Via Ferrata alone is lonely. I've seen on internet a girl saying that she's climbing alone and she tried something, but it was too lonely. The reality is, it is lonely. I've started my drive at around 4:30. It was in the middle of the night practically. Dark outside, nobody on the road, and here I am. It's not easy. It is lonely. It will keep being lonely. When you do this alone, remember, it is lonely. It is you and your thoughts. You have to have a strong, resilient mind, because you have to deal with yourself, with your thoughts. And if you have demons here, then that's that. By the way, not to forget, yes, to answer to the comment, I'm climbing mostly alone. Why am I doing it alone? Because, well, there are multiple factors. For example, nobody would have wanted to wake up at 4 o'clock in the morning to join me, at least from the people I know. When doing this alone, there is a lot of risk that comes with the package. It's not only about feeling lonely and being alone, it is also about a lot of risk. Let's suppose you injure your spine or your head or your arms and you cannot call for help, then you are in big trouble. Being with someone, if you have a companion in the car while driving, it is fun because you talk, you entertain each other. Time passes differently. Also, if you have a companion, if something happens to you on the mountain, at least there is someone else that might even be able to help, or otherwise at least to go and call for help in case you are incapacitated. Here comes into place having the right gear with you, because if you have it and something happens to you, the partner that accompanies you on the Via Ferrata will be able to safely clip you, and you can stay there and wait for someone to come and take you off if you are incapacitated. Yes, probably will be excruciating pain. It really depends on what happens. You get the idea. You have to have with you as much aiding gear possible, because you never know what will happen on the Via Ferrata, and if you become incapacitated, at least you can safely hold on there until your companion can go and call for rescue, if it's not possible for him or her to aid you and get out of the situation. As you can see, there is more reasons to have someone with you than to go alone. Now, for my case, if I don't do it alone, it means I don't do it at all. And eventually, at a point, you have to weigh what is right and what is wrong, the risks that come with what is not recommended to do, which is go alone, and from there, take the responsibility of doing that. I'm trying to be as responsible possible. I have with me this Garmin InReach enabled device. This is not calling an Uber or Bolt or any other type of taxi service. It might take hours or day for help to come based on the situation you find yourself. This is not immediate reactive response. This is some help that eventually comes to you. Of course, on Via Ferrata, most of the times, what you can do if you go alone, choose your day and time in a way that increases the chances of having other people around you doing the same Via Ferrata. If that happens, it is like not being alone, because in the majority of the cases on the mountain, climbers are helping. It's not like in the big city. On the mountain, people change behavior. If you are in need, the majority of them will most probably risk their life to save you. So, yes, you can go alone, as I was saying. You have to weigh the risks of doing that and eventually to decide, as it is my case. Then you have to be responsible, because it is one thing to go out there, be prepared, minimize to the best of your abilities the risk, compared to going out there totally unprepared, practically getting yourself into trouble, creating that risk that otherwise would have not been possible to occur. Good. So I have this Garmin InReach enabled device. It's not a taxi service, it's not fast reactive response. It can take a while until someone can come to your rescue. This is the last resort. If something happens and I still am able to operate the device, then I will ask for help, understanding that it might take a while. I have a medical kit with me, as much aiding equipment possible to guarantee that if something happens, well, to increase the chance of me getting out of a situation in case something happens. Yes, it's not easy when you go alone, so yes, you have to go prepared. Let's go up there. The approach is fast, it is sharp, it is aggressive, not easy, will extenuate me. And then we have a vertical climb. This is a beautiful Via Ferrata. And yes, let's see what else one should know before going alone, or deciding to not go alone and only with company on a Via Ferrata. A viewer to the channel, she texted me last summer and she says, look, I'm enthusiastic, I've seen the channel, I want to go on a Via Ferrata, I don't have anyone to go with, should I go alone? And we started to speak, and I told her, look, if you go alone, you have to prepare yourself, you have to know where you are going. When you have a friend, maybe that friend has some experience and can handle everything. You practically just go there and don't think at all. When you go alone by yourself, you have to think all these things. You have to prepare, you have to know the route, the exit, the approach, and so forth. Good. Now, there are other things that you have to consider when going alone. As I was saying a moment ago, very important is to prepare yourself to be able to get out of it in case something happens. There is another thing you have to consider: how experienced you are in general when it comes to outdoors, mountaineering, rock climbing, extreme sports. If you have some experience, if you have good fitness, then you are better off. If not, it means will not be necessarily that easy. Maybe you'll get into trouble, maybe it will be difficult, maybe it will shock you. What about fear of heights? Because if it is your first time, you have to take all these things in consideration. If it is not the first time, if you have previous experiences, but now you want to go alone, let's go back to the previous point. Now you have to think all the time. There is no longer someone maybe more experienced than you or familiar to the place to think, prepare, and guide you. Now you have to do it by yourself. Good. To recapitulate, going alone, possible. Why not? Does it come with responsibility? Of course. Can you get into big trouble? Obviously. There is no question asked. Should you go alone? Why not? If you can, or if you want to take the risk, yes. But try, when you decide for yourself, to minimize the impact on others. Because if you go out there and you have to call for rescue, well, now your actions are impacting others. You have to think by yourself. This means you have to prepare how you get there, the approach, the climb, the exit. If you don't know the place, well, now you have to document yourself, to educate yourself. You have to be aware of where you are going and what are the possible risks and dangers waiting for you, and of course what one can do in case of emergency. For example, in Dolomiti everyone is going there, but some Via Ferrata you go up how do you go back? Approach long of maybe 6 hours. 6 hours it is a lot, because if it takes you 6 hours to go up the Via Ferrata, which is possible in Dolomiti Mountains, and then 6 more hours to come back, well, it is 12 hours in total. You need a headlamp, you need water, food, and in case something happens, remember, in case something happens and you become incapacitated, now you have to wait for rescue to come and recover you, or to give you a hand, what, at least 6 hours? You have to consider all these things. It is the most important thing you have to do, going alone or not. Because it might happen that you don't go alone, but you are the strongest and better prepared out of a group or the duo, the pair. And in that case, you have to do the same. You have to prepare for two. This is number one, preparation. You have to work hard on making sure you took into consideration as many details possible. Let me tell you this, the unforeseen will always happen. Today, I will go with this Edelrid kit. Guess what? Because I forgot the one I prefer most, at home. It happens that I grabbed this because I always grab the backup, but I forgot the main Via Ferrata set. Well, it is what it is. The unforeseen always happens. So now the decision is, should I go up? Of course, I've been here a couple of times. I know the Via Ferrata very hard that something bad will happen to me, almost zero chance. If something happens, I'm in trouble because I don't have the secondary Via Ferrata set. Do you have to have a secondary fallback Via Ferrata set with you? It depends. And here comes point number two. When going on a Via Ferrata, alone or not, always choose what is in your reach. Don't go if your difficulty level or your ability to climb goes up to the difficulty level C. Don't go on a D if you are not properly prepared with someone that can aid you in case something happens. When you go alone, try to avoid attempting to overcome your limits by doing exactly this, jumping difficulty level out of curiosity. If you know the Via Ferrata, if you are properly prepared, yes, you can do it. If it is something new, try to avoid that. I have to do it, and I'm doing it many times. I always am scared and worried because you never know what will happen. If it is your first time going on Via Ferrata, the recommendation is always take a B route, no higher than that. See, it is already difficult, and then try to go on a Via Ferrata that has short approach, short exit. In case something happens, then it will be easy for you to reach back to the car. To repeat myself, what makes dangerous climbing alone a Via Ferrata is what can happen there. Usually the approach is quite safe, but then when it comes to climbing the Via Ferrata itself, their danger can increase. If this happens, the worst that can happen is for you to end up incapacitated. What this means, you can lose your consciousness in case you fall and you hit your head, for example, or a rock hits you. It can happen. You can break your spine. It can happen while falling. You can break a leg, sprain an ankle. If you don't have enough water with you, for example, and you don't hydrate properly, again, you can get into trouble. If any of this happens, then you're in trouble, because it might take a lot for you to get out of it, or it might become impossible. Waiting for help in these situations might become critical. You might have a time or not. Of course, if you go with a friend, you might be in the same situation. If both of you don't have water and you need that, you don't have it, at least the friend can run to the first stream of water and bring you some. If you sprain an ankle, maybe after calling for help, your friend can give you a hand. If you're alone, self-reliant, if this could be possible. There are obviously many other things that can happen in the worst case scenario on a Via Ferrata, and then come the relative ones. For example, you might get scared, and in that case, you are able to continue or to complete the route, but mentally you break down. It will take a lot of self-persuasion for you to be able to continue and close the route. It might happen that you get scared for one reason or another, fear of heights, fear of falling, you get tired. It might be that you burn out your upper body and you can no longer leverage your arms. It might be that you reach exhaustion. It might happen a segment that it proves to be difficult for you. Descending a Via Ferrata, it actually is dangerous. It is easier to go up than to go down. Hence, if it happens that you reach a segment where you can no longer proceed, a segment that you are not able to solve and cross, that one is trouble. What if you fall on a bridge, for example? The probability of that happening, if you do it right, is low. But what if? What if you fall and your Via Ferrata set deploys, you fall on a vertical, and this vertical comes right after a horizontal and places you way below the safety steel cable. Very hard to recover from that. If you are alone and nobody else on the mountain, then you have a problem that you have to solve. Hence, this is how comes into picture you having enough know-how in utilizing slings, knots, and various techniques that might get you out of trouble. Practically, at the end of the day, what makes solo climbing a Via Ferrata not necessarily recommended is these moments where you might get into trouble. Let's speak about hiring a guide or going with friends. Very important here to understand up to what point friends or a guide will actually help you in case of something. When you hire a guide, the guide knows how to get there, how to get out, and the guide can anticipate risk because they know the route, they know the mountain. If there is bad weather coming, they are able to spot it and say, look, we don't go. But I've seen many guides only providing this service of guidance, not of rescue and recovery. They don't have with them aiding gear to help you overcome difficult segments. They don't have with them enough tools to help you in case of something. Of course, guides have a tendency to take you on easy routes. They expect the maximum to happen to be you spraining an ankle. If you sprain an ankle, they'll just give you a hand. You'll reach the base and that's that. But let's suppose it happens that you go on a Via Ferrata. It is an easy one and you actually fall and your Via Ferrata set deploys. If they don't have with them a belay kit, it means to them will be very difficult to give you aiding when needed by you. You see, a guide, it is helpful, but it might be that that guide can only help you up to a point, and otherwise the main essential risk is not necessarily properly handled. Of course, you have a guide. A hand you might definitely get with a guide compared with a case when you are solo, going up and down that Via Ferrata. With friends, even worse, because they might know what they do, but they might not. So make sure that you always spot the difference between going with company for entertainment or somehow easing up things and going up with people that can actually help you in case of something. I've seen many groups going on the mountain unprepared, without a schedule, ignoring the common sense, spending hours taking pictures, and then ending up in the middle of the night in the forest with no equipment to aid themselves. And it's not only about wild animals, it is about thunderstorms. Again, you sprain an ankle, you slow down tenfold, it gets cold in the mountain during the night. Maybe you have to start a fire with what? Totally unprepared. So yes, don't confuse having company with having someone to rely on if something happens. Many times on Via Ferrata you don't have cell coverage. This is very important because if you don't have, like me, the Garmin InReach enabled, there is no way if you solo climb to call for help. Also, if something happens to you, let's suppose a stranger sees you and they jump, themselves to go after help might mean walking for hours until they reach cell reception. Always get prepared for that. Eat properly, make sure you can last at least the rest of the day without food, have enough water, take a layer, even if it is warm outside, take a layer in case you need that. I want to tell you something else before anything. Let's see, I don't have a tripod with me, but it is enough. Yes, it is enough. Hopefully it will not go down. What I always do when I start a Via Ferrata is to test the equipment. I clip the Via Ferrata set, I check the connection to the belay loop of the sitting harness. The sitting harness, I tighten it a little bit more. Now, I know by memory that it is properly tightened. What I don't know is I keep them stored very well, but what if the material gets old and will break? Let's put it under a bit of tension. So here I am. I know for sure that the Via Ferrata set is properly connected to the belay loop and it holds me. We don't know how it will act when I will fall, if, hopefully never, but you get the idea. This also gives me peace of mind. The resting system, same. I have to rely on it, and before I do that I have to test it. So let's test it. It is good, it holds properly connected. Let's take the small one now. And I'll do the same. I'm testing it. Everything was connected properly. I'm ready.